10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Hello.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record. Hello.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Boy, he said all that shy is right.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Excellent.
640. Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast The Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? Oh, I'm all right. Oh, how are you? Are you all right? Yeah? Good. So, what's this episode going to be about? We've got a special guest. Yes, a voice we've never heard on the show. Well, you kind of have heard his voice, but you probably don't realise it. But anyway, I think there's nothing more to be said. I need to run the theme music, and when I come back... Actually, I'm going to need some help from the regulars, but I'll explain that. Let's run the theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Yeah, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The high life, the shy life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
I'll go anyway for a potato.
Delicious.
Hello, campers. How are you? You quite like a big bang, don't you, Paul?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Do you think he has?
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Yeah, I'm strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
But has the Shy Life Podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
It's all gooey and easy and yum.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life Podcast.
I like that. Yeah.
Marvellous, Paul. Hi there.
So, a new guest, you say? Oh, where did you get them from? Well, he's a pal of mine from the internet. We've not been talking that long at all, but I managed to talk him into talking to us on the podcast. He very kindly, began listening to some episodes of the podcast. And, well, whether rightly or wrongly, I suggested he listen to the 2022 Review of the Year episodes, which comes to about five hours or more if you listen to them back to back, which he didn't do in one go, thank goodness, or I think he'd probably be having to have a lie down in a dark room. But over a number of days, he did listen to those episodes, and I really think I probably should have suggested that he listen to something more shorter, or like, I don't know, something less over the top and weird. But I guess I kind of thought that it was good for him to sort of hear lots of clips and see all different types of shows that we do. But of course he didn't know who any of the characters were, or any of the guests, or anything really. He did very well. I don't mean to sound patronising. I just realised that actually at times it is quite difficult to pick a good episode to suggest to someone to start the show, because we've had so many now. And it seems like such a long time to say, oh, well, go back to episode 1. They never catch up. Yeah, it's fine to sort of go back and listen to old ones now and again, or listen to the current ones and go back. I mean, I've done that with shows myself. Yeah, there's been a fair few shows that I started and then gone back. Too many to name. But, so, who is our guest? His name is Matt. He's from Germany. And I said you had heard his voice without realising it. Well, it was the episode with Warren, when Warren came over and we met the 2 Coconut Jims. If you remember listening to that, there were a couple of little extras in the title sequence. There was a hello and also a
hi there
at the end of the second bit of music. Well, that was Matt. We've been swapping voice messages anyway, and I said to him, can we have you in the title sequence? And he said yes. And then because he'd been sending me so many voice messages and we'd just been chatting away, I was trying to suggest that, you're telling me really interesting and fun stories, just for me. What about if we do something for the podcast? And very kindly he said yes. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to send him the questions, and then I'll record myself reading the questions, and then he'll send back a message answering my question. But I promise that I will also answer my question, maybe not in as much depth as he has done, because he's really good with the length of answers. It's not just like 30 seconds, it's a real anecdote. But he did say if he was going to answer the questions, I had to answer them too. So, yeah, the reason I keep mine brief is that, well, I can always tell him more offline, and you, the listeners, probably know the answer to a certain extent anyway. The trouble is, I don't have the questions. I have a few ideas for questions. So I'm going to call the regulars and just ask them to suggest something, and then I'll pass them on. And then the rest of the episode will be Matt and I chatting, sort of via voicemail. So, I thought I'd call your Uncle John first. Paul, what's going on? It's just me. Yeah, I could see that from your phone. Why don't you just pop over? No, it's just quick. I need some advice. Yeah? Oh, I saw your text. Something about a question. Yes, we've got a guest. And we're putting the episode together now. It's my friend Matt in Germany. And, I need some questions to suggest to him. Oh, right. Well, can't you ask him something about, I don't know, food or parties? Food and parties. Yeah, actually, it's his birthday coming up, or it's, around now. Yeah, I think he's actually planning a party. That's a good idea. Oh, there you go. Well, I think that's great. Thanks, Yeti Uncle John. Is that all you need? That's great. Thanks. All right then, I'll speak to you later. Speak to you later. Oh, Paul, what's going on? Oh, I was just talking to Yeti Uncle John. Oh, quick question. Oh, all right. I can't be long. I've got to get off. I need to go and see somebody. Oh, all right, sure. No, just quick question. I'm interviewing this guy, this friend of mine in Germany, Matt. I need some questions. Can you think of anything? I've got a few ideas, but, anything you can suggest? He lives in Germany. Yeah. You've been to Germany. I have been to Germany, yeah. Well, why don't you ask him about travel? Or, places he's been to? Yeah, that sounds all right. Yeah, I can do that. Is that okay then, Paul? Yes, yeah, that's marvellous. Thanks, Cromitty. No problem. Oh, yes. See you later. Good luck with whatever you're doing. Who can I ring now? Ick, I suppose, if you'll speak to me.
Hello, Kieran. How can I help?
Hi, Ick, it's me, Paul.
Oh, how are you? Haven't heard from you in a day or two.
Oh, I know. Just busy editing and visiting the parents and things.
Oh, yes. Right. What do you want? I guess you want something.
Yes, kind of. I'm doing an episode with my friend Matt in Germany.
No, I can't go and pick him up in my spaceship. I'm resting.
No, I wasn't suggesting that, although that's actually a really good idea. But maybe not for today.
No, Paul, not for today. Definitely not. I'm always ferrying Toppity Smelly over here. Can't start ferrying other friends.
No, that's not what I wanted. I'm doing an episode and we're swapping questions. I'm sending him questions and he's answering them.
Right.
And I wondered, if you had any suggestions for questions.
Suggestions for questions? Does he like ice cream?
Does he like ice cream? I have no idea.
Well, there you are then. That's a good question to ask him. I've got to go.
Oh, all right. Gotta go. Oh, dear. Oh, gosh. Okay, right, Martin, ringing Martin.
Hello, Paul. Sorry, I saw it was your number.
Hi, Martin. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Not too bad. What's up?
Oh, I'm interviewing this guy, Matt, friend of mine in Germany. I'm trying to think of questions because we're about to do an interview and it's quite short notice and I haven't come up with the questions.
All right. Have you asked him anything about, I don't know, favourite films or TV or what about music? Or books?
Well, that's all. Yeah. That's good. That's the sort of thing that I often ask people.
Oh, sorry, Paul. Should have been more original.
No, Martin, that's fine. I'm just sort of trying to arrange it all, and no, that's yeah. Well, I'll go with that.
Great.
How's Tallulah?
Oh, she's fine.
And Reginald?
Yes. They sing a lot with one another.
All right. Great. Okay. Well, I better go.
Yes, Paul. You get going.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Paul.
I guess Bettina. Yeah, I mean, these questions are sort of coming together really well. I was going to ring Charlie Gerber, who'll just talk about pies. And I expect Albert's busy with the Phoenixes, but I don't think I'm going to need to ask him anymore. These questions are... Yeah, I can see it's coming to... I will ring Bettina, though.
Hello, it's me, August Evans. How can I help?
Oh, August, hi. I wondered if I could speak to Bettina. I mean, maybe you too.
Hello, darling, I'm here as well.
Oh, you're both in the same room. Great. Well, you know, I'm doing this interview with this guy, Matt, from Germany, and I just wanted some questions. Just brainstorming, because my brain wasn't working very well this morning.
Oh, darling. Oh, right. Questions for him. What about what's his favourite actress? You know, not a modern actress. Maybe an actress from the past. Oh, it's surely got to be Bettina Dupre, hasn't it? Well, you know.
Who knows? Yeah, that's okay.
What about what's his favourite artist? That could be you, August. Oh, yes, I suppose it could.
Well, yeah. Favourite artist, favourite actress. Yeah, that all sounds good. Look, I think my phone's ringing. I'm going to have to go. I think it's time for the interviews.
Oh, well, good luck then, darling.
Yeah, thanks, Bettina.
Oh, yes. Good luck. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, sorry it's been so brief.
No problem, darling. No problem.
Oh, gosh, yes, Matt's on the other line. Look, listeners, I'm going to have to go because... Matt's ready to record, so I think we've got the questions. Hopefully it'll come together well and you'll enjoy hearing what Matt has to say. I think it's going to be fun. All right, let's go. Sorry, Matt. Hi. Right, yes, I'll be with you in a minute. Okay, all right, yeah.
Hi there, I'm Matt, 34 years old, from Germany, and I think the rest will become apparent through the questions.
So, Matt, my first question is, the Shy Life podcast hopes to be quite an international show with many listeners and collaborators from around the world. I know you've travelled, but where are your favourite destinations?
So, regarding the question, where would be my most favorite travel destination? I have to admit that basically New York City was the most awesome vacation that I ever did. It was in 2018, I believe, with my husband. And for a country pumpkin like myself, this big city, which is way of an understatement for New York City, was just amazing. We were there for like 9 days, I believe, and we were not able to see everything that we wanted to do, which is just insane because we walked like around 10 to 11 kilometers every day. But just the variety of things that you can do in the city or with day tours is amazing. We watched like 3 Broadway shows. We went into a cinema and watched The Incredibles 2. We made a day trip to Washington, D.C. and went to the White House. And it just baffled me the sheer amount of things you can do in this city, and also how many people they were at all times, like really close to you. On the other side, normally I am more of a nature person, so New York City in itself is fine, and other big cities like Dublin or Edinburgh or I don't know, Barcelona are also fine, but they don't have that much content to you. I mean, if you were running around with a local, obviously yes, but as a tourist, you can only visit so much tourist spots, right? So what we usually tend to do is we always make a holiday that is basically consists of cities and nature. And we always try to mix it up because we can do different things in these different locations. And I believe that every country has beautiful countrysides. It doesn't matter what country I would name now. My future destinations I most definitely want to travel to are my top 3 in no particular order are Canada, Japan, and New Zealand, for example. These would be my top 3 countries.
Thanks for your answer, Matt. That was great. I know you wanted me to reply to these questions too. I won't go into as much detail because the listeners know this already, and we can always chat more about it offline as well. But I love Venice. I love travelling in Europe, really, and Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway. But I love Venice. I've been there about 10 times. I've been to Italy a lot, Rome, Verona, Florence twice, France, been to Nice quite a few times, Paris quite a few times, Marseille, other places that I've forgotten the name of, Germany, I've been to Munich twice, I've been to the beer festival one of the times, where else? Berlin twice, Trier, but that was a day trip, Dusseldorf, Cologne was just a day trip from Dusseldorf, and further afield I've been to America, New York, San Francisco, LA a lot, Portland a couple of times, Vegas 3 times. Some of these were part of other trips, sort of more than one destination in a trip. But yeah, I can tell you more, but that's just off the top of my head.
So I can do a little story time about that Scotland vacation. So it was last year basically, and it was around end of July, early August. And for the record, I'm walking at the street, so if you hear loud noises from trucks, I'm sorry for that. We basically didn't really plan this vacation. We planned it 3 days before we departed, and so the flight prices were all right, but we were quite shocked by the hotel prices in Edinburgh, which were quite high for only a couple of nights. So we were there a total of 14 days, But still, the prices were like high-class hotels in the States. So anyway, we booked it because, Germany had a heat wave during that time, and we just wanted to get somewhere where it is colder. So we booked there, and we basically landed in Edinburgh, and we get into that taxi driver, and the first question he asked us is, "Are you here for the festival?" And my husband was preoccupied with finding the right location on the map and the address of our hotel. And I was like, what festival? And he's like, well, here in Edinburgh. And he has like the most Scottish accent I've ever heard. So I had to ask him 2 times to repeat that. And he said, like, well, here's this cultural festival. It's called Fringe Festival. And it's like the biggest cultural festival of the world. And Edinburgh will be packed with tourists from all over the world. And then both my husband and I looked at each other and we laughed and we was like, all right. That explains why our hotels were fucking expensive. And he giggled and he laughed. And so that's how we basically came into contact with the Fringe Festival, which was awesome. It was really fun, like seeing all the streets packed with people, just like 2 years after Corona. And so yeah, we enjoyed Edinburgh, I believe, to one of its best times. And it was really fun. It's a beautiful city. And Loch Lomond was also quite good.
So I've been to Edinburgh lots of times because of Callum's gran, and she used to live in a town called Dunbar, which is about 25 minutes by train to Edinburgh. And when I went with Callum, we used to do pub crawls, because we're talking like 20-something years ago when we first went, or even more than that, maybe the mid-90s. And I think probably one of the times I've been the most drunk was in Edinburgh. We went to 10 pubs and had a pint in each one. And Callum lay down in one of the parks because he was so drunk. This was day drinking as well, so... but yeah, we had lots of fun times. I think I have been to some of the shows at the festival, but I've never stayed there. I think I might have gone when we were staying with his gran.
So our honeymoon, yes, we did a honeymoon. It was 7 days. We traveled to Dresden, which is a big city in eastern Germany. It's an old city that was completely destroyed with bombs in the Second World War and rebuilt. It's a nice city to travel to. We did hop on, hop off tour, walked a little bit around the city, did a little bit of sightseeing. And around Dresden is, I believe you would call them the Alps of Saxony or something like that. It's basically a mountain range where the sediment is based of sandstone, if that's the correct definition of that. It's like Yellowstone or something like that. But if you're not from Dresden and you want something special for your house, you do a sandstone facade, basically, because it looks super fancy. And you can basically walk through a whole mountain area there with lots of this sediment and beautiful trees and with a river and stuff like that. It's basically a national park. And yeah, we switched between the city and the countryside for a few days, and then we traveled back to Germany.
I spent my honeymoon, although I'm no longer married. But I spent my honeymoon in Dusseldorf with a day trip to Cologne. And on my YouTube channel, my Mr. Yeti YouTube channel, there's still those videos that I made doing my poetry in both Dusseldorf and Cologne. Yeah, that's a nice souvenir of that holiday, even though things didn't work out in the long run. I still enjoyed that trip, and I enjoyed visiting those cities.
My least favorite countries I would like to visit are basically Australia. Not that I have anything against the country itself or the people there. It's just I believe that everything on this continent will kill me, basically, starting from the sun, and it ends by kangaroos that will drown me in a puddle of water, or a cow that eats a snake and, I don't know, kills me with a kick or something like that. So Australia would be one of those, and like really humid destinations like India or I don't know, Brazil or something like that, because I'm not good with hot weathers and I have difficult skin when it comes to sun. So these countries would be more or less. I still want to see them, don't get me wrong. One day I basically want to travel to Australia, and I will basically do this on their winter time. Same with Brazil and India. They are not like destinations I want to see right away, right? So I have time for that. Well, and there are obviously countries I wouldn't want to visit at all because, well, it would be quite dangerous for my husband and I to go there and be public about that we are both married to one another. So, yeah, that is also a factor that you always have to consider, which is quite sad, actually, depending on the time we are living. But anyway, yeah, most favorite travel destinations are always like now I'm bambling again. Damn it, rambling, not bambling. I'm rambling. Would be a combination of cities and countryside. Yeah, I hope I answered your question to your liking.
I should probably add, seeing as you mentioned Australia, that, that's a funny place for me because I like so many Australian TV shows and I've seen how beautiful the place is, but I'm also, like you, petrified by the idea of all the insects and things that could possibly kill me. I hadn't thought about being kicked to death by a kangaroo, but that's definitely a possibility, I suppose. Of course, there's lots of mass murderers and serial killers. Well, I know they're all fictional, but all the baddies that I've encountered in Australian soap operas over the years makes you think they must be hanging around on every corner, but I'm sure that's not the case. I do want to go, but it's a long way to go, and at the moment it's a bit much for me, and like you, I don't think I'd cope with the heat, but I've always said I wanted to go. I guess we'll see. question is, the Shy Life podcast enjoys talking about films and TV. Do you remember the shows and films that you used to like when you were younger? Were they German shows or UK or American shows? Or a mixture? And would they be dubbed or subtitled?
Growing up, I watched... Sorry, I can't remember the years in elementary school or anything like that vividly. But growing up, I watched a lot of TV, and I remember that at Saturday and Sunday in German TV, we always would get the Disney series, Disney Channel, you call it maybe, with like Ariel and Aladdin and I'm sorry if I'm butchering names, because the pronunciation in German is a little bit different, and I might slip into that. So I watched that quite a lot, and Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse and Captain Baloo. I believe he's called differently in English, but I'm not quite sure. I think it's Tailspin or something like that in English. So I watched that. It was obviously dubbed in German because it was a kids show, and for my most life, it was basically until I have access to the internet that I couldn't, even if I wanted to, I could not have watched anything in English, because this was only possible on MTV. And then it was also mostly dubbed over really badly. So yeah, most of it was dubbed. But then again, when I got to high school, and when I was around like 9 or 10 years old, anime took over the German TV afternoon program, and I basically grew up on the Pokemon boom and the anime boom. So to this day, I'm a huge Pokemon fan, because I watched the first season when it came out in Germany and was hooked ever since. I played all the games. But not just that, I watched Sailor Moon. I watched a volleyball manga or anime with a girl volleyball team. I forgot its name. And I watched a lot of One Piece. And Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball. So this was basically when this kind of stuff came to Germany, I was basically hooked on that, and most of this still is active in my adult life. So to this day, I read basically the new One Piece chapter when it comes out, or read the new Shonen Jump, or read a lot of webtoons, because I like how the stories are told and how the characters are drawn, and yeah. But on the other hand, I also quite enjoyed watching like the Batman series or Spider-Man, which was also quite prominent in on the Saturday TV shows. Yeah, but that was basically what I've watched. And when I grew older and had access to internet, like when I was 15 or 14 around, I started watching Scrubs a lot. And I remember that Scrubs was the first real TV series that I have started to watch in English, because I've reached the final season. Not the final season that was available, or that was aired, but the final season that was available in German. And I wanted to watch further, because there were like 3 or 4 seasons more in English. So I sat down and started to watch them in English, with subtitles on at first. But over the time, my English got better, mainly because I've watched English series and I needed the subtitles less and less. And today I never really watch anything in German anymore, except for cinema movies. But if I have the chance, I also watch them in the original version. because many of the jokes are language dependent, and pronunciation is really important in that. Not pronunciation, but how the words are talked. I don't know what the word is. I'm sorry, I don't know the vocabulary for that. But really good examples for that basically are, if you're familiar, is the series called Final Space by Olin Rogers. It's an awesome comic series basically about Gary, and Olin Rogers speaks Gary, and he has like this perfect, I don't know, he just delivers the line of Gary perfectly. And I watched 2 episodes in German, and it was not bearable for me to hear another voice doing Gary, because it sounded so bad. The lines or the jokes were not good because they didn't have the comedic talent of the original. And I think that something like that often gets lost in translation or in dubbing. And another example would be Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I think Captain Holt is one of the most funniest characters for me ever created, and the actor, I have to admit, I really don't know his name, which is a huge shame. The actor delivers the lines of this character perfectly with all this mimic and how he speaks and the tone of his voice, and everything's perfect. And if you try to watch that in German, it's just so many things get lost. It's just sad. And therefore, I only watch in English now. And yeah, that's basically the question. It's a long answer. Sorry for that. But yeah, that's how I grew up and how that basically affected most of my adult life. That's funny.
Please don't apologise for long answers. We like long answers on the Charlotte podcast. That's great. Shows that I liked when I was growing up, well, that would be Doctor Who, which is still one of my favourite shows. I started watching Doctor Who in about 1979 when I was about 6. And that sort of, drowned out any other show, really. One of my theories is the reason I'm not that much into Star Wars is that I was too young for the first film, and between the first film and the second film I discovered Doctor Who, and I just nothing else interested me. Other shows I got into as I sort of got a little bit older were repeats of old 60s shows like The Avengers, the detective show, not the superhero show, and sort of American shows from the 60s like Lost in Space and Land of the Giants and The Invaders. I just liked everything that was sort of 60s or old. I liked the style of it all because I liked 60s music as well, even in the 80s. It took me a while to catch up with the 80s, but yeah, so that's my answer. And well, I know you're listening to the show, so you'll hear me talking about TV quite a lot if you listen to more than 1 or 2 episodes. So, yeah. So, Matt, my third question is a bit of a mouthful. There's rather a lot of question. I was going to ask you about birthdays, because I know that you've had a birthday around the time that we're recording, and I know that you just about escaped having your 30th during the pandemic. You had it the year before, didn't you? So I guess my question is, can you tell me about any memorable birthdays? And did you do anything good for your 30th? Like, maybe ideal birthdays in the future? Also, like, if you were going to throw a party, what food would you have? Actually, we can probably talk about food in a separate question. So, also, I thought that maybe, what about if you were going to have a fantasy birthday party? What people would you invite? They can be famous, non-famous, people you know, people who are, like, no longer alive, that they would be alive for your party. Anything like that. Sorry, that's a very long question. Any of that is good.
So, to answer the question of the birthday, any special birthdays, I have to say there are two that come to my mind that were special. The first one, I believe, was either my 18th birthday, so 18, not 80. I'm not that old. Or my 21st birthday, 21. Oh, I hate the English language when it comes to numbers. And so it was a small party with just my old schoolmates, and I made it a little bit Mexican themed. So we had Corona and Desperados as beer and tequila shots. And I don't remember much of that birthday party. I know that we celebrated it at my mom's place in the kitchen. And I know that my mom made a lot of food. Basically, maybe a famous German food, Schnitzel. And, well, let's say we were like 5 or 6 people, and I think we drank for at least 20. And I remember that this party was, not really a party, that get together of friends was really nice and fun. I have, like, when I think about it, I have like these 2 or 3 flashbacks of memories that were really nice. So that's basically the first night I remember. The second one would be actually my 30th birthday, which, well, it was a fun day and all. So I had a huge party. I invited friends from university, my old school friends, friends I made through my husband, and he also invited some friends from his university. And it was overall a fun party. My mom was there, my brother was there, and the family of my husband. So overall, a really, really happy day. Considering the fact that I had a really bad time overall during my 30th birthday, because I had a really strong depression, and because of so during that time I was doing my PhD, and I always had the plan to become a professor one day. And working 3 years at universities made it abundantly clear to me that professors are, and I hope I don't offend any of your listeners, are the biggest childs I've ever met. It was so hard working for them because they fought like children about the most stupidest stuff you can think about. And it made me realize that if I wanted to pursue this career, I would have to work with people like that. And I kind of lost track of that. And the depression basically stemmed from the realization that I didn't have any aim or goal I was working towards beside the PhD. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do next afterwards. And figuring that to come to that conclusion of this took me quite a while. So on the outside, my 30th birthday was fun the day and all, but I also remember that I was really stressed at that day and couldn't calm down, and it was always like really hectic and stuff like that. The overall atmosphere, I hope, for my guests was good, but for me, and especially for my husband, and I'm really sorry for that, and I hope I apologized to him enough already for that. It was not a nice day, because he saw that I'm stressed, and the whole situation was not that great. So I have a fun memory for my birthday, and let's say it was a good day considering all the circumstances, but on the deeper levels, it was not a real fun birthday. Following that really sad story, let's talk about something I would like doing if I had the possibility of inviting everyone I wanted, dead or alive, famous and unfamous. So basically, I would throw a huge party, and based on their public personas, I would basically invite Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman and let them duke it out. Who's the boss, basically, between the two. And also Ryan Reynolds would bring like a lot of aviation gin, and I think Hugh Jackman also has like an alcohol brand, but I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I would invite oh gosh, now I've forgotten his name. So Jensen Ackles, who plays Dean Winchester from Supernatural, and I would also invite his two co-stars of his, so Misha Collins, I believe, who plays Castiel, and I forgot his name is rather complicated. So, but the star the person that plays Sam Winchester, so the brother of Dean Winchester, because given from what you can see on the social media, these three people have also quite nice chemistry based on their public personas and stuff like that. So I think it would be fun to have them around. So yeah, Olin Rogers, again, I'm a huge fan of his. Also, for music, I would invite Frank Turner, if that's possible, because I think he is a hoot, and to have him play live is really fun. There are also some German bands I would invite to hang around with, and of course friends and family, and obviously the Shy Yeti. I mean, what's a party without a Yeti, right? Any dead people I would like to invite to obviously Freddie Mercury. Sorry, I have to think about the we were watching this Netflix series called Big Mouth. It's if you haven't seen it, it's a really dirty and naughty series about teenagers growing up. But the fun fact about Freddie Mercury is that he appears as a ghost in the series, and he sings a song with every gay kid that is growing up and comes to the realization that he or she or they are gay. And I have to. This thought just crossed my mind. That would be really fun to sing a song with Freddie Mercury. I don't know what other dead person I would like to invite to hang around with or have at a party, because they are dead, and I don't know if I would be hang around the fun version or the regret version of them, because maybe they would regret that. You know what I mean? It's difficult. Anyway, Freddie Mercury would be there. I don't know. Never really thought about that. But that would be my answer for now. I forgot about the food. The most important thing. So I'm a classic guy. I would basically have my birthday. I know I have birthday in January, but I would celebrate in the summer. And I would basically have a big barbecue and have burgers and beer. And for people that like it, they can have like cocktails and whiskey and stuff like that. But I think the food would be burgers. Good old cheeseburgers. Grilled on a barbecue. And plain and simple.
Thanks, Matt. You coped with that question very well. Dear, that was about 5 questions in one, wasn't it? That party of yours sounds great. Yes, I'd be quite happy with any of that food you mentioned, and beers, and burgers, and a barbecue, and any of that. Yeah, that all sounds very tasty. I like so much food. But yeah, I definitely want an invitation to that party. What about my birthdays? Well, my 21st wasn't very memorable because I was working, and it's the only birthday I've ever worked, ever, because, after that experience, I've aimed never to work on my birthday. I was on a work placement at the time, so didn't have much choice. I still got to go out for a pizza in the evening, but it was one of those situations where by the time I got back from work, I went to the shops to try and buy something, and the shops were just about 5 minutes from closing. And I mean, this was such a long time ago that the film that I bought, which was new at the time, was Mrs. Doubtfire with Robin Williams. It had been out at the cinema, and they just released it on video. Video, you see, very, very long time ago. So that birthday was less memorable, although I remember it because it was less memorable. That's weird. My 20th was more memorable because I was at university and we did filming for Sutton Park with Jelly Monsters, and yeah, I'm only just beginning to tell you about Sutton Park, so anyway, but the listeners know a bit more. My 30th, I was in San Francisco with quite a lot of friends. That was pretty cool. I can't remember that much about what I did on that actual day. I remember I had a meal with those friends, and I remember things I did when I was in San Francisco, but not necessarily day by day or which things happened on what days. I know we visited some of the sites of that were mentioned in the series Tales of the City, which is a series of books I like by Armistead Maupin. Then we went off to Vegas, but that was later in the week. Yeah, it was a really good trip. As for, well, in case we talk about food separately, maybe I won't say what I would have at my party. Pretty much any party food is good. As for people I want to show up, maybe Kylie Minogue, because she always seems fun. Probably some actors from Doctor Who. Not sure which ones. Who else? I'd quite like my 2 granddads to be there because I never really met them. I met one granddad, but I was so little. And the other one I never met, my mum's dad. She always says really nice things about him. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what they'd be like at parties. They may not have been party people. May not be in the best situation to meet them at a party. Maybe that's more of a quiet dinner. But I'm sure there's lots of other people I'd invite. But I'm keen to ask you another question. So it's not about you, Shy Yeti. It's about your guest. It's about Matt. I want to know about Matt. Okay, let's think. Another question. Okay, Matt, I have another question for you. It's a question dear to my heart. It is, what are your top 3 favourite ice cream flavours? What other desserts do you like?
So, hi there. Favorite ice creams? Definitely cookie dough. Or variations of that. Then ice cream like a strawberry cheesecake, something like that. It's also always good. But if it would be somewhere in Italy where the best ice cream is available, I'd probably just eat stracciatella, which is basically vanilla with like chocolate sprinkles in it. Vanilla and something along the line of mocha or something like that. So, which is basically coffee flavored, right? This would be my top favorite 3, but Ben & Jerry's for like everyday ice cream, cookie dough and strawberry cheesecake. My favorite dessert basically would be carrot cake, the American one, with the frosting on top. I like that very, very much. There is also a German version of this cake, but this version has no frosting, which makes the cake rather dry and well, depending on how much carrots you put into, it can be like soft and stuff. But I think the combination between the good frosting and the carrot cake itself is important for a good carrot cake. So yeah, carrot cake is definitely my most favorable dessert. But I also like cheesecake a lot. Also, again, the difference between the German one, which is a little bit different in comparison to the American cheesecake. Both are fine, but I prefer the American one. And I don't like the New York style, but more or less with raspberries or strawberry jam on top. That is really good. Well, that's the answer for dessert.
Matt, I approve of your choices. It was nice to hear you mentioning things like strawberry and things like that, because I find there's far too much attention on chocolatey, toffee type ice creams. And when I go to places like Italy, I'm always looking for the fruity ones. And some places you go to, or if you perhaps go to the cinema, or if you get a pizza and they're offering ice cream as a dessert, they don't even have like the strawberry ones. Or I used to like the Cherry Garcia Ben & Jerry's, and you just don't see that now. It's I don't understand it. You'd think that ice cream was only chocolate, toffee, cookies and cream. Where are the fruits? Where are the fruits? So as you can guess, yes, the fruity ones would be my favourite. And when I've been to Italy or to Venice, I sometimes manage to pack in 2 or 3 ice creams a day, and that's probably with a double scoop. Not recently, I must add, but but I do like things like tiramisu ice cream. I like coffee ice cream. I do like coffee ice cream a lot. Cherry ice cream is good. Sorbet, anything like that. Actually, I don't hate chocolate ice cream by any means, but the best chocolate ice cream I've had is probably in a restaurant called Carluccio's, which I don't think even exists, or certainly maybe is not as big as it was a few years ago. And their chocolate ice cream was very rich, and you only needed quite a small portion, really. It was really nice and very chocolatey. But yeah, you can't beat a good vanilla either. I used to visit friends in Broadstairs by the sea on the south coast, and there were two rival ice cream sort of shops in the town. And because we were staying with my friend's parents, every day I would go to one or the other ice cream store, because I thought if I did my research and I went to each one every day, then eventually I would decide which was my favourite. But, it's hard, isn't it? It's difficult doing this sort of research. You can't just go once or twice or 3 times or 4 times. You have to go 5 or 6 or so. I never worked out which was my favourite. But, I'd be quite up for going back for another tryout to see if I could make a decision. But I don't know. I'm prepared to donate my taste buds to science. But other desserts I like would probably be, like those traditional puddings that I think I sent you photos of, like apple crumble and custard, or apple and rhubarb crumble and custard, or sticky toffee pudding with custard, or what else? Like treacle sponge and custard. But I also like Eton mess, which is all cream and meringue and strawberries and trifle. That's got custard in as well. I like a lot of desserts, but I don't tend to necessarily have a chocolate dessert. Maybe a fresh cream cake, or sponge cake, or fruit cake. I've gone into cakes now. That's not strictly speaking a dessert. Oh gosh, I feel really hungry now. I want a bit of cake, or a trifle, or a steamed pudding, or... I'm going to have to go and sit down. I need to think of another question for you. So Matt, another question. What music do you like listening to? What is the last film you saw? And did you enjoy it? And do you read much fiction? So that's like 3 questions in one question, but there we go.
So my taste of music is a little bit all over the place. So when I was a teen, I listened to a lot of punk, rock, and metal music. That started fizzled out a little bit. So I still like rock and punk, not so much a metal fan anymore. But I'm also a sucker for good acoustic music, being that a piano or someone who plays the guitar or something like that. So my favorite band of all time basically would be Rise Against, which is a punk screamo band. I'd say in the past they had more screams than they have now. They got a little bit mainstream with their newer albums, which is okay basically, right? People have to live and feed their families. So that is that. Because I basically grew up on Sum 41 and Blink-182, which are still great bands to listen to today. I really like the new direction Machine Gun Kelly is going with this pop-punk music. It really reminds me of the old days, and he has some catchy tunes mixed within it. So that is like a newer band I like to listen to. There are also some classics I obviously like Queen. Because of my mom, I basically can sing along to every ABBA song that was ever produced. Other than that, on a daily basis, I listen to a lot of gaming music played on a piano, because gaming music itself is made so that the player can hear it over and over again without being annoyed by it. So I could listen to the Super Mario theme song for hours without, getting annoyed. And if you play that on a piano or anything, I could listen to that while studying or writing or working. So, yeah. And obviously, because I watch a lot of anime, right? Their intros, they're always catchy and always being done by huge bands over in Japan. So you have some high quality music there too. Even if I don't understand a single word these people are singing, I still have fun, right? So yeah, that is that. Regarding my favorite movie, I believe that, well, I don't know if it was 2021 or 2022, but Everything Everywhere All at Once came out. This movie was just so freaking awesome. My husband and I watched it in Trier in the Broadway theater, which is a local cinema there, nothing special, but they showed it in the original version with in English. So yeah, it was a really awesome movie. I really enjoyed that. Besides that, I don't think I have a really good taste in movies or cinema. The other day we watched The Glass Onion on Netflix, also a really great movie. I haven't seen Daniel Craig, or I wouldn't have thought seeing Daniel Craig in that role and landing these jokes and stuff like that, because I always saw him as the guy from the Dragon Tattoo movies, the Stieg Larsson films, or as James Bond. So seeing him in a more comedic role was kind of refreshing, to be honest. Besides that, I think Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is like one of my most favorite movies of all time. It's a funny slasher movie, basically. It rips off like these typical American slasher movies and gives them a funny spin, where you have basically two rednecks living in the woods, and they meet a group of teenagers, and because the teenagers think they are typical hillbilly rednecks who want to kill them, because, you know, that's the homage on the slasher movies, they try and to finish them off before, and then chaos entails. So that's pretty funny. It's a real good movie to watch. It's with Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine. Both of them, I think, are great comedic actors. Well, another great movie for me was the anime movie Your Name, which is like a comedy drama. In its core, it's basically a gender bender whereby one person suddenly wakes up in the body of another one, so like a Freaky Friday situation, basically. And but it has a distinctive spin to it, which makes it really awesome to watch. And it's a really funny movie and gets kind of sad at the end. But yeah, Kung Fu Panda is always nice to watch. It's like a comfort movie. Go watch it if I'm like bored or anything. And yeah, other than that, I don't think I have like a real favorite movie. So to further answer the question, the last part is if I read any books. Not books in a traditional way. So probably my answer would be no. I'm not much of a reader. I believe the last books I read were a fantasy novel series that is called In die Zwerge, which is a German fantasy book, which is basically translated to the dwarfs. I don't know if it's actually translated in English or not, but that was basically the last book I've read. The reason for that is basically I have to read a lot at work. A lot of technical and scientific research papers, and when I get home, my eyes are tired, my mind is tired, and I don't want to read anymore. So I kind of stopped doing that. But even as a teenager, I didn't read much. What I like to read, but it's not like any heavy reading or anything, is like reading comics and mangas. They still have texts though, so maybe that counts for something. But honestly, not much of a reader.
Listeners know quite a lot about what I like musically, but at the moment I'm mainly I'm a bit more back into modern music, or at least modern albums, sometimes by older groups that are still around, and also by new artists. I find 2 or 3 songs I really like, and then I just add them to my playlist. So I listen to the playlist, and I never get around to listening to the whole album. There's some bands I have... Yes, Deals, it's true. It's true. Yeah, come and join me. There are some bands that have released albums recently, Belle and Sebastian being a sort of indie group I've liked for years. Their new album came out, but I really only listened to the singles. But I must go back and listen to the album, because I think they've got another album that's come out since that last album from last year. There's a lot out there. The last film I saw was called The Duke from 2020. It had Jim Broadbent in and Helen Mirren. It was based on a true story about a man who stole a painting in about 1961 or 2 or something. He was protesting because he thought that OAPs should not have to pay for their TV licenses. And he went to jail, and he thought that if he stole this painting, he could make the authorities agree to change the rules or something like that. Anyway, it was quite a good film, very, very amusing, very good fun. I recommend it. As far as books are concerned, I'm reading the book of the film I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'm reading an autobiography of an actress called Pam St. Clement, who, she was in lots of TV, but she was in EastEnders, the soap opera. I'm not actually sure why I'm reading it, other than that I heard her mentioned in another autobiography, and I often find myself doing that sort of cross-referencing, sort of thinking, oh, well, that would be quite interesting to read about. And I do like reading about women in showbiz, whether it be singing, acting, whatever, just sort of hearing their stories. Matt, another question. What animals did you grow up around? Can you tell us about any of them?
So to answer the question with if I grew up around cats or animals, and yes, I did. So my mom had always had animals, cats, dogs, horses. I lived on a farm for, I think, 6 years or so. I basically grew up with a dog, an Irish setter. When I was born, I believe she was already 3 years old, and she died, I believe, when I was around 12 or 13. She was, I don't know, like, for an Irish setter, she didn't have any animal instinct regarding to hunt or anything. So she was a dear soul and really kind. I really liked her. Till the end, she got really sick, had problems with her bladder and stuff like that. So she annoyed me a little bit when I was a teenager because, she couldn't hold out until I came back from school. So I always had to clean up afterwards, which was annoying. I felt really bad about that for a long time, but I hope that she forgives me in that regard. After that, we got another dog from a shelter. He and I didn't really connect because he was already quite old, like 5 or 6, and he was not really well behaved and didn't really listen even after going to school, even so dog school basically. So I didn't really build up a connection with that dog. Regarding cats, I believe I had like 4 or 5 cats growing up. 2 of them basically ran away or were fed by other neighbors, so they chose to go there because they made the more fancy food, like they were cooking for the cats and stuff like that, which really hurt as a child, but understandable for the cat, right? Another one died due to eating rat poisoning. I think this was like one of the saddest days when I was like 14 or 15, and we basically found the body of the cat in our garden. Yeah, that was a bit traumatic, but I got over it over the time. And my mom still has a cat and 2 horses. So every time I meet her, I meet the cat, who is like a big cuddle monster, starts drooling and dripping whenever he is slightly cuddled, and starts purring like a car. And yeah, so lived on a farm also for 6 years, like I said. So I grew up around pigs, cows, rabbits, horses, donkeys, all that stuff. I don't have any fears regarding animals, normal animals, right? So I still would fear meeting a wolf or anything like that, which is or could be a possible scenario in the woods where my mom lives, because they repopulated the wolf population, and there are like 2 packs in a huge area. But if you're unlucky, you could really meet a wolf pack in the woods where my mom lives in Germany. So yeah, that's not fun to think about. But yeah, a huge animal fan. Currently don't have an animal because my husband is allergic to animal hairs, especially cats, which is kind of sad. But we are looking into getting a non-allergic kind of cat, which is a possibility. I don't want to get a dog because they are much work, and I don't have the time to educate the dog properly. Maybe in the future, but currently that's not an option for me. So yeah.
Well, I grew up with a lot of animals. My parents have always had cats. Sometimes they had as many as 6. The first ones I remember were Sam and Penny, who were, I think they were cousins. They weren't brother and sister, but Penny was ginger and white, and Sam was black and white. And then we had a British blue cat called Poppy, who was, I think, sort of like a birthday present for me when I was about 4. She lived until just before I went to university. Not as old as Dealey, but she lived, a decent age. Then we had Tom and Jerry, another ginger cat, that was Tom, and Jerry was tortoiseshell or calico type colour. They were very nice. Luckily, I've got a lot of the cats that I lived with on episodes of Sutton Park, because not so much in the 80s, but by the 90s I had a video camera going, and a lot of these cats sort of lived quite a long time. Who else do we have? Marty. He was a black and white kitten, but unfortunately he got knocked down by a car. Tigger. He was a ginger cat who just came through the door when he was a kitten one stormy night, and nobody knew where he came from, so we kept him. There was Oliver. He was a stray. He was a ginger cat as well. He was quite old by the time he came to live with us. Barney and Emma. Emma was a tortoiseshell. Again, Barney was very, like ginger and white, but very fluffy. We also had Bobby and Puzzles. They were my great aunt's cats, and when she died, they came to live with us for the last few years of their life. Who else? I'm sure there were others that I've forgotten. Yeah, those were the main ones. Always cats. Always cats. And yes, cats, Steels. Cats like you. Yes, but you weren't there then. You weren't there then. No, you weren't. You weren't there then. I'm allowed to know other cats. Come on. Don't be so grumpy. So another question, Matt, is if you're going to a fancy dress party, what would be your ideal costume? And have you ever been to such a party, even if it was a Halloween party? And what did you go as?
Well, Halloween is not a big of a deal in Germany. It has become larger these past couple of years, like the last 7-8 years or so. I personally, I think during university I went to one Halloween party with dress up, and I believe I went as a giant chicken, but I'm not quite sure anymore. So besides Halloween, we have like this thing called in Germany, not everywhere, but in the region where I grew up and where my university is or was, it's called Carnival. It's nothing, so it's not like the Brazilian Carnival or anything. It's something. So basically, you have this time around the, I don't know, February, March, April, something like that, where we have like once a year, you have like a parade, something like that, where people dress up in silly costumes and children get a lot of sweets, because the people that go in the parade basically throw sweets at people. And they have like this whole culture built around it here in Germany, where you have certain specific types of comedy and whole careers basically built around that holiday or this time of year. It starts at the 11th of November, and I think it ends somewhere around Easter. Yeah, and because of that, a lot of Germans have costumes at home, being that just a silly clown costume or dress up like a bee or something. And many people use these costumes at Halloween as well and do some, I don't know, Halloweenification of that. Like, I don't know, put on some blood or put on, I don't know, some bandages. Anywho, so I'm not sure if I really ever went to a dress-up party, to a fancy dress-up party. I went to carnival parties when I was a teenager and as a child quite a lot. But, well, if I would go to a fancy dress-up party and I could choose my costume of choice. That is actually, I never really thought about it. So I basically would like to go as one of my favorite characters, obviously, but I don't have the physique basically to portray them. One character that would come to mind, think going as Gary Godspeed from Final Space would be quite funny, because the character's actually quite fun, and I'm really fond of that character. It would be a simple costume, nothing really special about it. Another example, which would be fun, but more like a group costume, would be like superheroes or something like that, like in the Big Bang Theory with the silly Superman and Flash costumes. My friends and I, in teenage years or mid-20s, I don't know, went as the Turtles, which was quite fun. We basically made the costume from scratch. It was nothing fancy, right? We took some long underpants and long sleeves and painted them green, and we basically made like the shell, which also functions as the backpack, and then we bought this plastic weapons. It was nothing super fancy, to be honest. But yeah, this was actually quite fun, and yeah, I think that's my answer.
I don't think I ever went to many fancy dress parties. There's only really one time I can remember dressing up. Obviously, I've dressed up for filming stuff, like Sutton Park back in the day, but that wasn't a party. That's sort of probably when I bought the most fancy dress sort of props, was when I was filming Sutton Park, just because Halloween was a really good time of year to buy cheap props and cheap sort of fancy dress, which I could use as very bad B-movie monsters. But the party I can think of, well, it wasn't even a party. It was actually, now was it 2004? I think it was 2004. I went to see the band The Scissor Sisters in Brixton in London, and it was on Halloween. And somehow they put out that they encouraged everybody to turn up in Halloween costumes. And I decided I was going to go as Frankenstein's monster. And I got a really good mask from like Woolworths, which was just like a very popular store at the time, but it's since left the UK. It wasn't an expensive mask, and it was really only the mask. I can't remember what else I wore. I don't think I really bothered much else. The mask was so good. I was probably Frankenstein's monster in jeans and t-shirt, to be honest. But yeah, it was a rubber mask, like a full face mask, and it was really good for what it cost. My friend Alan, who was also there, he had a Frankenstein's monster mask, but it was only like halfway down the face. So the other half of his face was just his mouth and beard. Yeah, it wasn't a full mask. So I think mine won out of the two of us. Mine was the best. The thing I'll always remember is walking down the hill, down Brixton Hill into Brixton to the venue dressed like this. Sometimes Brixton can be a bit rowdy, and but that day I felt quite brave walking down the hill dressed like that. We also made a pumpkin, out of a pumpkin. I think it's the only time I've really made a pumpkin sort of face, and we took the pumpkin with us and we dressed it all up, and we left it on the stage, I guess at the end of the show. I don't know if the Scissor Sisters ever saw it, but the pumpkin was preserved in a photo of me wearing some sort of fright wig earlier in the day, and it ended up on the front of one of my books, which was called Mugshots, one of my poetry collections. So I still have that photo to this day, and sometimes I put it up on Facebook as a profile picture. I even wrote a poem about that pumpkin, which is in the book. It's one of those things where the preparing for the actual evening, the dressing up and the silliness and the having a nice meal and having some wine, it really sort of was almost better than the actual gig itself, although the gig was really good too. And Yeah, it was. I don't always have very good memories or very specific memories of gigs that I went to, but I'll always remember that one, and partly because of all of the Halloween dressing up and stuff before we actually got down there. The next question is, if you could wake up and find yourself as a famous cartoon character, which one would you like to be? Which one would you hate to be? Can you say why?
So, which famous cartoon character I would like to be? I think I'd say some of the Looney Tunes, so Bugs Bunny, something like that, because their life seems kind of chill, and they obviously can't die from stuff that has happened to them, so that's a plus, right? So even if I got an anvil dropped on me, I would come out really small and flat, but after a second or two I would be fine again. So I think that would be really cool. A character that I rather not would be any superhero, because the world they live in is super dangerous. Everyone is trying to kill you somehow. B, power corrupts, and C, they all have tragic stories, and I honestly don't really want to go through that. And point B is a little bit, power corrupts, blah blah. I don't know. If I would be that character, I would be like he's shown in the comics and stuff like that, but I don't know. It's hard to imagine that if someone could throw laser beams from their eyes, that this person would not rule the world, basically. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, that's why, for example, I think The Boys has a lot better grasp on how the world would run if superheroes were real, basically. But that's just my take. Anyhow, that's my answer.
Actually, Matt, I agreed with your answer. Yeah, even if you were like Wile E. Coyote, you always get to come back. I'd like to be one of the Looney Tunes characters myself as well. I'd like to go running off the edge of a cliff and have my legs sort of dig, and then look around and then fall. Actually, I don't want to be doing the falling really, but I like all of that. I like those cartoons. And I think I also agreed with what you said about the superhero thing. Yeah, it would be a lot of hard work and lots of tragedy. I don't think I'd want to wear the lycra suits either, unless I was like Jessica Jones and just wore normal clothes. But then it's not quite the same, is it? You have to be really trim. I think being a superhero is probably a young man's game or young lady's game. Yeah, I'm not sure 49-year-old superheroes are quite so cool. So the question is, would you rather go up into space or deep down into the ocean? And what would you hope to find?
Well, I definitely choose space over deep sea, although both are pretty interesting, and in my opinion both have the same chances of finding intelligent life, if you ask me. But I think space would be more interesting because there would be so much more to explore and more possibilities, basically, given the basis that we would have sufficient technology for faster than light travel and all the good Star Trek and Star Wars shenanigans. But yeah, definitely would choose space and be an explorer or something. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Good answer. As for myself, well, I mean, obviously on the show, I'm always going up into space with Ick. I've been to quite a few planets, and yeah, after a while they're all pretty much the same. They all have good things and bad things, but I guess if Ick stays with the show, I might do more of that. I guess I've never really been down into the sea, but I don't think I'd like it if it was just sort of very wet. I think if it was just wet and smelt of fish, then what I would like is to find sort of Atlantis, basically. Sort of an underground world where you could wander around. But even then, Atlantis is probably just full of Starbucks and McDonald's, or I don't know. You know, you always have that sort of vision of something being wonderful and exciting, and oh gosh, it would be so exciting to go up into space. It would be so exciting to go down into the sea, but it's just when you get there, it's usually very disappointing. It's never as good as you imagine it in your head, or how it is in the films. But I think I've said before, I would quite like to have one of those undersea bases like in a James Bond film, but only if I had internet, and also if I could contact friends and things. I don't know, this is very difficult. It's a difficult question. Why ever did I suggest it? Well, you seem to do quite a good job at answering it, Matt, so it's just me who's no good at answering or deciding. I'm very cynical, aren't I? I'm sorry. There was you being all positive about excitement and that, and I bring the mood down. I am terribly sorry. Hey Matt, now this is almost the last question, my penultimate question. I wonder if you have an anecdote that you can share with us, something that we might not know about you. Yeah, tell us a story.
So, to tell you a story or an anecdote, it's always difficult for me because I'm not that kind of person that you can up to and go, hey, tell me a story. And I'm like, wow, I have like 5 stories ready for you and you just can tell them. I always admire that at people when they can do that and just, take the floor or take the room and dazzle people and, charm them with a story or so. So, I have thought about it really hard, and I didn't come up with any good story. So I'm basically telling you the story of how I'm not really a storyteller. I always need like a prompt or something, or a certain situation, and then I can basically go ahead and tell you a take from my life, basically. I don't know if that's a disadvantage or an advantage, but that's just me, right? So, sorry for that. Not really an anecdote kind of guy, or a joke person. I do terrible jokes. My husband always tells me I'm the typical dad joke type of guy. So, that's that. So, anyhow, sorry for that. No anecdote whatsoever.
I'm trying to think of a story I could tell you. I probably told it on the show before. I suppose I should tell you about the time I was a superhero, or not a superhero, a crime fighter, kind of. I'm sure I have told this on the show, but you might like to hear about it. About 10 or 15 years ago, I was in the East End of London with my boyfriend at the time, and we were coming out of an art supply shop, and we heard this man shouting and saw these two teenagers running away, and the guy had, I think, just walked out of a bank that was next door to the art shop, and these teenagers had distracted him and sort of asked directions, and then they grabbed the envelope. I don't know how they knew that he was carrying money with him, but they ran away with it, and my boyfriend, he ran after them, and obviously I didn't run, but I sort of followed behind him, and when I got around the corner, he'd caught one of them. I think it was a boy and a girl, or young woman and a young man, and my boyfriend had caught one of them, and luckily the police had been alerted, and they sort of were starting to deal with him, but there was no sign of the money. I can't remember what happened to the other person, but I definitely think that we knew that the person that had been caught had been the one who had the money. So where had they dropped it? Had they thrown it into a hedge or something? And whilst the police were talking to them, I started looking around. It was potentially a dangerous thing to do, because the other getaway might have come back, except that the police were still quite close, so probably not. They probably would have come back at a later time, or later in the day. But anyway, I looked and I found the envelope with the money. I can't remember if I picked it up or whether I called to the police or whatever. But anyway, the money was returned to the man, and the robber was supposed to go to court, but he wasn't put in jail. He never showed up. I don't think we got to the stage. I'm not quite sure what stage they lost him. We would have been called as witnesses, but we never got to that stage. The police called my boyfriend and said, we've lost the criminal, or he gave us false details or something. So we never got a day in court, but we did get a reward of about £50 each, which, was more than we expected. We didn't do it to get a reward, and it was all very spur of the moment. But I always joke that my boyfriend at the time was the brawn doing the running and the catching, and I was the Hercule Poirot, or the Miss Marple, who found the stolen loot. I still refer to it on my social media as a former crime fighter. We did end up in the papers, but not a photo, because it was considered that, sort of putting a face to us could potentially make us targets, targets for criminals who didn't like do-gooders like us, I suppose. But yes, Deals. Deals, you were around at the time. You were alive. Yes. The one funny thing is, when we were in the papers, they wanted to put our ages. My boyfriend, who was a bit of a cheeky monkey, told the papers I was about 2 years older than I was, just to annoy me. So it went in the papers that I was older. I was still much younger than I am now, but yeah. So yes, that's my story. Sorry that went on a bit.
Question for you would be, if magic is real, and like Harry Potter, or basically something like that, and he could transform into an animal, what kind of animal would that be? And you can only transform into one. It's not possible to change that. So, yeah. What animal would that be? Oh, and I forgot something. You're basically as intelligent as a human, so it's not that you would transform into the animal and have to live by their instincts or habits or anything. It's just that you could polymorph into that animal and, I don't know, fly around, swim, whatever.
Hey Matt, thanks for your question. If I could be an animal or turn into an animal, I think it would have to be a cat. Yeah, I think I'd like to be, don't know, I'd want to be a cat like Dios, who's been a house cat. I'd probably like to be a cat like my parents' cat, an outdoor cat where you can explore, maybe go up a tree, or there are lots of fields to explore. That would be pretty exciting, but as you said, it would be a bit of a sort of a metamorphosizing type thing. So maybe what I'd do is that I'd be a detective, and I'd use my cat powers to turn into a cat and slink into the houses of bad people and find out stuff. And people that, as a detective, I was investigating. It would put me ahead of the game in my detective business, being able to get into spaces that perhaps a normal detective wouldn't. So yeah, either that or a Yeti, of course. Although I don't think there'd be much benefit with being a Yeti, except I'd be taller. But no, I think Paul the Shy Kitten. I don't know. Yeah, definitely a cat.
So my first instinct when I thought about these questions were like, well, basically a bird of prey, like an owl. Not because I want to hunt or anything, because I think these birds are large enough that I don't have to fear like getting caught by another predator or anything. So, and flying is cool, right? So flying gives you like the perfect freedom. You can fly through the sky and look from above. But then again, I thought that other animals would be cool too. So something like a squirrel or something, because you can climb trees like really fast, and I don't know, or a fox or something. And also like swimming animals like a sea lion or a dolphin or a whale or a shark or a manter. I hope that it's called manter in English, like the sea devils, I don't know, the big things that look like angels, basically. Not angels, basically just wings, swimming. They have a long tail. I don't know if it's called a manta, or a sea devil. I don't know. My English sucks here, but yeah, even a turtle, like a seawater turtle, I think would be awesome. But to answer this question, honestly, I think I would not. I think I would go with the owl, because flying would give me like cool ways of traveling, and you could also see in the night better and stuff like that. So I think transforming into an owl would be kind of cool and has its advantages, I guess. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Thanks very much for answering all my questions, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. Thanks, Matt.
So thanks for all the fun questions and for taking your time. I'm Matt, and this is goodbye. See you.
Well, listeners, I think that's what we've got time for. I hope you enjoyed that episode. I think that worked really well. I guess we could have spoken on Skype and had a chat that way, but because the way we chat is in little messages, like on WhatsApp and stuff, and sending little audio messages and things, it really sort of Oh, yes. You think it was all right, Deals? Did it work? You liked it? Did you like it? Did you? Do you think it was a good episode? Yes. So, listeners, it seemed to make sense that we did the interview in that way, and then we could just do sort of 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, and it worked well, I think. But hopefully we'll have Matt back. I think there's probably more questions to be asked, and yeah. But yeah, thanks, Matt, for doing that and for sending your replies. And I hope I answered your questions. As I say, we can always talk more on some of those subjects offline or online or whatever. But anyway, listeners, we've got plenty of episodes in the can. So yeah, join us again soon. And yeah, I'm being climbed on by a cat now, so I better go and pay attention to him before I get told off. All right, Deals? Don't want to get into trouble, do I? All right then. Bye for now, listeners. Bye-bye. Enough questions in the end? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Matt seemed to have some really good answers for them, and it definitely helped though having a chat with you and Cromitty and Martin and Bettina, and just to stir the old brain around. Yeah, well, it's been different from some of the interviews you've done before when it's been like one long chat. Yeah, and I think actually in a way it worked better because you had a break between each answer, so ideas and energy-wise. Sometimes when you do like a long chat for an hour and a half, you begin to lose your voice, or you could really do with sitting down and having a cup of tea and, doing little short questions and short answers. Yeah, that was a different way of doing it. I really like the way it came out. Yeah, I think so. Oh, it's pretty good. Look, I think I can hear the theme music, Paul. Yes, so can I. So, I think it's time to say goodbye. I think you're right. Oh, here comes the theme music.
I gotta go now! Bye! Gotta go! Bye!
Goodbye. It's been good, but yeah, definitely time to come home now.
Goodbye. Yes, goodbye.
Wow, really? No kidding.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Well, Paul, how did it all go? It went well. Yeah, it's nice to chat to Matt. He's very easy to talk to, and I think it made for a good episode. Yes. Well, I was quite pleased that Yeti Uncle John behaved himself, Paul. Behaved himself? Yes, he didn't pop up and try and take over the show or ask any questions. No, I think that would have been quite unlikely. He would have had to have had Matt's phone number for a start. Oh yes, I suppose so. Oh gosh, I didn't think about that. Well, I was still impressed. Yeah, I was impressed too. He'd have found a way if he wanted to have got in the way. Yes. I mean, Dealey took over. Yeah, Dealey did take over. But, Dealey has a certain charm about him. He does. That Yeti Uncle John does not have. No, absolutely. Oh gosh. Anyway, I suppose we better go. Yeah, I think we better do. All right, listeners. Bye for now.
Oh, I think that was a wonderful episode. This is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Six hundred and fourteen. 640.
My English is so freaking bad that I had to do the answer for the first question like 3 times already, and I always start to mumble and rumble, and I don't want that. So give me a little bit of time to get that figured out. Sorry, I had to re-record, but because a crazy lady knocked on my car, and I had to shoo her away. Well, I'll talk to you later. See you later. What's a party without a Yeti, right?